Hello, my name is Katie Groves, and this is part 3 of my story. You can view parts 1 and 2 linked below. I suggest you do so first, otherwise this won't make much sense. I left off talking about my year at the age of 16, 17, where I was consciously, forcibly addicted to crystal meth, and I had what I consider to be the most important transformational year of my life. It's very weird to talk about crystal meth as a transformational drug. I don't mean it in the way most people would interpret that, but it did transform me into someone who felt truly soulless. And I needed that at the time. I had always felt empty and alone, superbly isolated from my environment, from the people around me. But this year set everything else apart. Some people call crystal meth the devil's drug. I can understand that. I truly did experience it as demonic, and I'm not going to get into my personal beliefs about demons or any of that. Perhaps I'll address that in a later video. But if there is evil, I experienced it when I was strung out on meth during that time. And I said something during that time, I'm going to paraphrase, I don't remember my exact words, that was really profound for me. What I said was, I never knew I had a soul until I became addicted to crystal meth, because now I know what it's like to have lost it. I became aware in some way that I had been alive, and that I no longer felt alive, and that I wanted to feel alive again. And that shows you how deep in my despair I was, because I'm talking about how I felt previously, which was during my life as an MK Ultra slave. And at no point in that could I consider my state of being to have been all that spiritual, my experience of life to have been positive. But the depths of hell that I went to during that year, when I had been taken out of school, I had lost pretty much everything, everyone. I still had a bedroom in a family home, but the abuse that I endured during that time was extreme, as it always had been, and the scapegoating and the ostracization from the people who I'd been connected to within the cult was severe. I was being programmed to commit suicide. Everything around me was encouraging me, everyone around me, the drugs, all of it, the programming, it's encouraging me to kill myself. The suicide programming that was installed during this time was extremely intense. Don't wish to trigger anyone by saying this, but at the time I lived near train tracks, and would frequently go there and come very close to committing suicide. During this time, it was a real war within my soul, between the self-destruction, between the despair, and the hope and the light that I did not know that I contained inside. There are times when I would make up almost any reason to live, and I tried on a daily basis to stop using, but the compulsivity that fueled me was impossible for me to control. Finally, at the age of 17, I had a spiritual experience. And I detached from myself, and I realized that I was out of control, that I was addicted. And I not only woke up to the reality of my addiction and to who I had become, but to the fact that I couldn't control anyone around me. And that was of paramount importance for my deprogramming, my awakening to having been programmed and to leaving the cult. Codependence is a tie that binds cult survivors to each other. The trauma bonding that we endure is often severe. And so I felt responsible for the people around me, and I felt unable to let go, and that was one of the reasons that I stayed. But I realized in that moment that I couldn't control anyone, and while I wasn't yet aware that I'd been programmed and that I was in a cult, I did realize that I had no power over other people. And I turned inward, and I looked inside for the first time, and I saw a person, a human being who wasn't just an addict, who wasn't just lost and suffering, but a light, I saw a light inside myself, and that's what I call my spiritual experience. I connected to something simultaneously within myself and above, outside of myself, greater than myself, that I was one with, that allowed me to feel some peace of mind. Shortly after this, by a miracle of this new leap in my way of thinking, this new leap of consciousness, I begged a family member to send me to rehab. And I suppose not wanting to look bad by turning me down, I was sent away, somewhere far away, to a treatment program center that started giving me tools that I could use to cope with life other than using drugs. And I was introduced to the concept that I'm not my thinking, and this went hand in hand with the spiritual experience I'd had just prior. And I started listening to the thoughts inside my head, and I started realizing, oh my God, there are voices in my head and they're insane. I could hear these voices, not hallucinations, but they were multiple dissociative parts of me in my head, much like a singleton, quote-unquote, person without DID experiences a single voice, or maybe even multiple voices talking in their head. It's normal to have these voices in one's head. It's not like schizophrenia. It's not a hallucination or a delusion. It's part of the human condition. So as a multiple, I had multiple voices. And these voices had been programmed, however, to sound demonic. And they were screaming in demonic voices, saying, kill yourself, kill yourself, kill yourself. And of course, naturally, I assumed that I was psychotic. I assumed that from all the crystal meth I had done that I had gone into meth psychosis, and actually, that was true. I did have some severe issues, some side effects from that drug. But as the side effects wore off, I became aware that there were deeper issues, other things going on. And so that's when my healing really began. I got clean and sober. I stayed sober. Not the first time I went to treatment, but I went back to treatment after a short time. And in between those two times, I went home, back to my hometown, back to this family member's place. And I actually was able to see the people around me. I didn't have the word programmed yet, but I saw them as these deeply unconscious people who I no longer had any real connection with, who no longer had anything to offer me, and who I didn't know how to communicate with. I had changed. I had, as I said, experienced a leap in consciousness. I was starting to wake up, and all of a sudden these people who I considered to be my best friends, my family, people that I deeply cared for, it's not that I still don't care for them, but these people that I felt so connected to, I no longer had any real connection with, and it was terrifying, but also liberating and very sad. I did not stay sober that time. I was reprogrammed to relapse, to use drugs, and I did so, and I fought it, and it was, again, a war within my own soul to find the light and choose health and healing against the programmed commands which told me to use drugs and kill myself. I was able to go back to treatment, and I was able to get well as I could, able to get sober, and I went through a lot of hell after that. And for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to go too deeply into my healing journey. I'm going to share that in another video. I already made a video called Basic Steps to Breaking Free, or Basic Steps to Freedom from Ritual Abuse and Mind Control, and you can pick up this video there. But I will, as my video is about to time out, make one more video to encapsulate, to wrap up everything I have said. Thank you.